Jake was a healthy little blue-eyed boy, his mama's treasure, his daddy's joy, till that Monday we thought would be like any other day. Took him to the babysitters, waved goodbye and drove away.
What is shaken baby syndrome?
By definition, shaken baby syndrome is also called abusive head trauma. It is a violent form of child abuse that happens when a child is violently shaken. It only takes 3 seconds of shaking to cause irreparable damage to a child.
What are the effects?
Children who are victims of shaken baby syndrome may live with irreparable brain damage. Some of those effects are mental retardation, cerebral palsy, seizures, learning disabilities, blindness, deafness. 1 out of 4 babies that are shaken will die.
2 hours later, we got that frantic call. The sitter screamed, "Come quick, nothing else, that's all." We were there in a flash, held him really close, but then inside we knew Jake would never be the same again. Don't shake Jake, it's a big mistake, such a big mistake. Don't shake Jake, there's so much at stake, so much at stake. Don't shake Jake. Rushed into the hospital to see what they could do. Their faces told a story we couldn't accept as true. And all that night, following day, we hoped and prayed and cried. But his 4-month life was ending, and at 4 o'clock he died. The doctor sat us down to tell us how his life was taken. You see, your little boy was badly, badly shaken.
What is the most common age of the victims?
There have been studies shown that children are mainly 3 to 8 months old that are victims of shaken baby syndrome. Most often boys are the victims. One of the studies that's been done shows that crying is the most common precipitant to shaken baby syndrome crimes. The crying's real. Stress is real. Anger is 1 letter short of danger was something that I learned long ago. Eleanor Roosevelt once said that, and it's so very true.
Alone with your baby, feeling some stress. The worries in your mind take away that tenderness. It's been a bad, bad day, and though you really try, you can't stop the anger when your baby starts to cry. Maybe he'll stop in just a moment, you say, but every trick you try won't make the screaming go away. Put the little one down, and before you do wrong.
Tell us about Jake.
Jake was our first son. He was born on 12/10/97. After the wife had 26 and a half hours of hard labor. I was happy to have a boy.
He was beautiful. He had just enough hair to say it was there. He had bright blue eyes. And he was my everything. The sun rose and set on our little boy.
What were those months like?
Jake was born in the wintertime, and Dave drives truck for the city. And there were long nights. He'd be plowing for 24, 36 hours at a time. And Jake had my personality. He knew what he wanted, and he wanted it yesterday. And as we know, baby's only way to communicate what they need is by crying. And Jake and I spent a lot of time crying together.
Yeah, well, he was colicky, so that didn't help much. When I came home from work, even though it was long hours, a lot of times, I'd take over for Pam so she could go get a rest. So she didn't feel like a single parent, which a lot of times she was. Loving and rocking, and those were good times for me. Even though I, was tired, but that's part of being a parent for me. Just doing what I have to do for my son.
It was the nurturing time. When they're so little and so dependent and fragile, those first few months are just the most important months in a parent's life. It was all new, Now what do? We've got this beautiful bundle of joy.
There was no manual for that.
There was no manual. And a baby's cry is the equivalent of the sound of a jackhammer. What a happy noise that is, hour after hour. But he was a beautiful boy. He was everything that we had ever dreamed of having our own precious baby boy.
Yeah, our dream of having our home, having a boy, being just mom and dad and left alone.
I went back to work when Jake was about 6 weeks old, and we had left him in the care of a grandmother that I had met while I was pregnant. I'd interviewed her 3 separate occasions, once with Jake, once without Jake, and then in an open house at our home. And he'd been with her for about 3 weeks, and our lives changed forever.
What are your fondest memories?
My fondest memories, simple, but just holding and hugging and loving with the boy. Most of the time he'd lay on my belly and we'd both fall asleep. So, that was my fondest memories.
And for me, when I was little, I'm from the generation that Disney was on TV on Sunday nights. And we always got our fingernails cut and our toenails cut, and then you watch Disney. That was a theme. That's what our generation did. And when Jake was 4.5 months, the Disney brought back Sunday Night Disney on TV. And we went over to my parents for spaghetti dinner. Things were tight. Finances were real tight at the house. So we periodically go over to my parents for dinner because we didn't have a whole lot to eat in the house. Had formula and diapers. That was the priority. We didn't have a whole lot to eat. So we went over to my parents and watched the opening of the Animal Kingdom. And I remember laughing because Davey was holding Jake, and he told him that he was going to lasso him one of those long-necked horses, which were actually giraffes. And I danced with Jake. He was being crabby during dinner, which was nothing unusual. He wanted to be held and wanted to be loved up. And I went into my old bedroom at my mom's house, and we danced to old 8-track, Staggerly, Save the Last Dance for Me, just really cool tunes. And he relaxed, and we went and watched the rest of Disney, sitting on my mom's couch together as a family.